Brought to you by Penguin.
Love Me Not, written by M.J. Arlidge and read by Elizabeth Bower. Chapter 1. 7:05. Southampton glowed blood red. It was a fresh autumn morning, the frost still crisp on the ground, but a warm light was stealing over the city as the sun crept above the horizon. It was a stunningly beautiful sight, and Sonia Smalling smiled to herself as she drove along the quiet country road. It was days like this that made you glad to be alive. Sonia had worked in Southampton for nearly 10 years, but had never chosen to live there, preferring the calm, unhurried rhythms of village life. She lived near Ashurst on the edges of the New Forest and loved nothing more than taking the dogs for a walk at first light. Her husband, Thomas, often accompanied her, and occasionally the boys too, when they could be coaxed out of their beds. With the sun low in the sky, it would have been a glorious day to bound along the narrow wooded paths with her 2 red setters, but Sonia had had to forego that pleasure this morning. She had a new set of kids starting today and wanted to be in the office early to ensure that everything went off smoothly. It wasn't a difficult commute, despite the inevitable traffic on the A336, and when Sonia was flying along the country roads like this, she was perfectly happy. She had her favourite radio station playing, the heating was cranked up to the max, and she was enjoying the roar of her new Audi. Uncharacteristically for her, she hadn't gone for the basic model, raiding her savings to buy the sporty version instead. Live a little, was her argument to her rather bemused husband. The road was clear, so she put her foot down. Despite the frost, her tyres gripped the road and the car sped along. She looked down at the clock, 7:05 a.m, and realised that she would be at work even earlier than usual today. That should keep her boss off her back. She flicked her eyes back up and immediately froze. A woman was standing in the road dead ahead of her, shouting and waving her arms. Instinctively, Sonia slammed on the brakes, but already she knew that it was too late. She would hit the woman and it would be her fault for driving too fast. In those few precious seconds, she saw the whole thing, the horrible impact, her shattered body. But to her enormous surprise, the car suddenly lurched to a halt a few inches from the terrified woman. Sonia sat stock still, her heart thumping, her head throbbing. But already the woman had rounded the car and was hammering on the window. "Please help me! You've got to help me!" Sonia turned to her, trying to fathom what was happening. The woman was dressed in combat trousers and a trench coat. Through the open visor of her helmet, Sonia could see a small trickle of blood running down her temple. "My boyfriend! He's come off his bike! He's not moving!" Sonia stole a look at the road and got her second shock of the morning. Ahead of them was a crumpled motorbike, and next to it a figure lying motionless in the middle of the road. The woman was crying, shaking, and desperate. So, gesturing to her to move away from the car, Sonia unclipped her seatbelt and climbed out. Sonia was still pretty shaken herself, but as she'd been trained in first aid, it was her duty to help. Flicking a look behind her to check that the road was clear, she hurried over to the man, praying to herself that his injuries weren't severe. She had seen many things in her lifetime, but she had never had anyone die on her. "Can you hear me?" Kneeling down on the cold tarmac, Sonia gently rolled him onto his back. His visor was cracked, his eyes closed, and already Sonia feared the worst. "Is he okay? Is he going to be okay?" Sonia ignored the twittering girlfriend, raising his head off the ground. He still felt warm, which was something, but he remained unresponsive, his head heavy in her hand. "Everything's going to be fine," she continued to the injured man, "but I need you to talk to me." Still no response. Sonia tried to ease his visor up, but it wouldn't budge. "Can you hear what I'm saying?" Still nothing, so she tried again, louder. "Can you hear what I—"
Sample complete. Ready to continue?